Hello and welcome to the Raptors Show, powered by DoorDash on Sportsnet 590 The Fan. I'm your host, Will Lou. Reminder, we are back in the studio and streaming live once again on Sportsnet's YouTube channel between Monday and Friday, starting at 2 to 3 p.m. To people watching, hello. Welcome to our 2-hour trade deadline special. We will be with you today from 2 to 4, an extra hour, and I'm joined by my producer and co-host, Alex Wong. Alex, how you feeling?
Let's go. Raptors made a trade. I'm excited.
Yeah?
You know, last week when Fred made the All-Star team, he told reporters that there was a time when he first made training camp that he was praying in his hotel that he could one day be on an NBA roster.
Yep.
This is what I've been doing since December every day, is praying every day that the Raptors would go on a winning streak and they would add some pieces at the trade deadline. So they've added one piece, which we'll talk about. They acquired Thaddeus Young from the San Antonio Spurs. I don't know. I came in here pretty excited today. How are you feeling?
Yeah, so I'm moderately excited, I would say. I think we've had so much discussions about what you're going to do with the Groin contract, attaching a first-round pick, seeing what you can get. And that's ultimately what they ended up moving, right? I have to say, though, the trade in itself is not like some sort of slam dunk, in my opinion. I think it's more like just like a very fine, acceptable trade for both teams. I think getting Thaddeus Young is good, and we'll definitely get into what he provides for the team. I know you and I are both Thaddeus Young experts.
Yeah, I've never texted as many people around the league as I did.
Around the league?
At 12 p.m. today. Yeah, I didn't even know I had sources.
How many Asians are around the league?
You know what? You're right. I only text Asians around the league. But coming up today, 2 to 4 p.m., Will and I are going to talk here in the first segment. And then at 2:30, we'll be joined by Blake Murphy.
An actual Thad Young specialist.
Yeah, who will actually tell me who Drew Eubanks is. And then at 3 p.m., we'll see if any other trades trickle in. If not, I think Will is going to send out a request on Twitter for questions. We'll get some of your reactions. And then at 3:30, Michael Grange will join us. And we'll talk a little bit about trades happening around the league as well, because James Harden is headed to Philadelphia, Ben Simmons to Brooklyn. So that impacts the Eastern Conference playoff race as well. So we'll talk about that. But first, so the Raptors this morning, finally, the Goran Dragic saga is over. They traded him to the San Antonio Spurs along with a 2022 protected first-round pick. It is top 14 protected, and it would convert to a top 13 protected first-rounder in 2023. And if it goes beyond that, it just converts into 2 second-round picks. And in return, they get Thaddeus Young, Drew Eubanks, and a 2022 Detroit Pistons second-round pick. I think there was some initial reaction right away about the first-round pick that was going out.
Sure. Yeah.
So I figured we could talk about that first. And they're really just moving back about 10 spots in the draft if you're looking at it right now. Because per Eric Kareen of The Athletic, if the draft picks were to convey today, the Raptors would be drafting 20th in the first round.
Yep.
So they would be sending that to San Antonio. And in return, they would get the 31st pick, which is the first pick in the second round from the Detroit Pistons. What are your thoughts in terms of the draft capital that was exchanged in this deal?
Yeah, I don't mind. I actually think that, look, obviously, moving down in the draft is not ideal. It is a penalty. But at the same time, I do think that, that upper end, that early 30s portion of the second round is generally speaking when some of the second rounders who actually get a long-term career in the NBA, when that is, that's where they're found, really. So I don't mind that. I think you're only moving down 10 spots. It's fine. There's also less financial commitments to this. I don't necessarily care too much about that myself, but there is a bit more flexibility, I would say, with a second round pick. I think obviously the big thing here is that the Raptors turned somebody who was not in the rotation, not on the team, literally in Miami, doing anything he can to get back to the Miami Heat. They turn him into a guy who will make the rotation, who will play for the Raptors. Now, for me, I'm thinking right now, and this is 2 p.m. right now, Eastern, the other trades that the Raptors make, if they end up making any more, we'll have to see how the final roster shapes up. But at this current moment, when I'm looking at it, Thad Young is absolutely good enough to be in the Raptors rotation. I understand he didn't play much for the Spurs this year. Didn't really fit with him. Before that, he was with the Bulls and actually quite an important player for the Bulls. He's good enough to crack the Raptors rotation, but I'm not sure how the positional fits right now work, because if you're looking at the Raptors bench, right, because right now their sixth man is Chris Boucher, seventh man is Precious Achiuwa, and then Delano Banton as their eighth man. Sometimes they go with Kem Birch a little bit, but obviously of late he's not really factored in any significant way. I think Thad can be even your third, your sixth man if you really choose to. But again, I think the fit there is strange because he's not an outside shooter. That's just not what he does. I mean, he can shoot it. Like, it's not like he can't knock down a few threes for you, but it's not a shot that he's going to be taking or looking for all that much. He's got to be wide open on a pick and pop or the ball swings over to him. Nobody's closing out to him because he's not a shooter. He can hit some of those shots, but really a below average shooter, right? Where he excels really is sort of in all the sort of in between spaces. A very smart veteran. He's played in the league a long time. He's been a part of a lot of winning teams. He's really good at just deflecting the ball. That's something that the Raptors seem to really value, is just like a guy who can be disruptive. And I think defensively, he'll fit into exactly what the Raptors are doing. Offensively, probably, you're using him as a screener, rolling to the basket. He's got, a very good left hand that pretty much he only goes to. He's not really going to be using his right hand. He's a lefty. And he is capable of he has got good touch around the basket. Again, like, I don't necessarily need to give people a scouting report on Thaddeus Young specifically because he's played in the league like 12, 13 years. People know exactly what he is. But he's a guy who can give you those in-between baskets. He's, switchable defensively. He can guard multiple positions. Another guy who's 6'8" with a 7'1" wingspan. So the Raptors definitely didn't have enough of those. And I think, he is, again, a guy who you can trust in a important moment. Let's say, Pascal gets the early foul trouble, which happens quite a bit, right? You can kind of put Thaddeus Young into the game. Let's say OG, is getting into a little foul trouble. You can trust him to sort of play on the perimeter there a little bit, although I think his best role is still in the front court. And I think ultimately when you look ahead to a playoff scenario, which is generally speaking when the Raptors were looking for in this situation, is somebody who can come in and contribute in that kind of scenario. I think in a playoff setting, you would trust Thaddeus Young on the floor in a way that I don't know right now if I could fully trust Chris Boucher to do that or Precious Achiuwa to do that. So on that front, I think it's an upgrade. But it's just even general, like you turn someone who was not playing for the team into someone who is playing for the team. It costs you about 10 spots in the draft. I'm okay with that. I think it's a perfectly fine deal. And for San Antonio, they get a first-round pick, or I guess they move slightly up the draft, and they turn a guy that they weren't playing into a guy that they're going to buy out. So it's a nice bit of business for them. And then there's the Drew Eubanks portion, which I don't expect too much to come out of that. Although, who knows, maybe, but he's been in the league a few years. He worked his way up from the G League. He was undrafted. Good for him. Hard worker, but it's pretty standard third-string center, in my opinion. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think from Bobby Webster's presser earlier this week, one of the things that he talked about was they didn't want to upset the long-term flexibility for the team moving forward in any deal that they were going to make. Now, obviously, I think if there was a more attractive player than Thaddeus Young, they would have been willing to maybe throw in more draft picks, but they were probably drawing a line there as well, given their draft record. So this is really a short-term move for this season, at least for now. Yeah. Thaddeus Young is 33. He's an unrestricted free agent.
You
this
do have
summer.
bird rights.
Yes, you have his bird rights.
But I don't know.
Yeah, but you also, like you mentioned, they moved down in the draft by, say, around 10 picks to add a player. And in exchange, they're giving out a player who's been hanging out at the Miami Heat practice facility for the past 3 months. So overall, I think the other thing, too, Thad as a veteran, as a good locker room presence, everyone that I was messaging around the league. I love saying messaging people around the league. I love
how you just turned into
everyone that I was messaging around the league. Catch me on Spotify Green Room tonight.
Oh, yeah.
Everyone that I was messaging said that he's just a great locker room presence, and it's going to be great for the young core here in Toronto. Like, I text Matt Bonner, who is now a San Antonio Spurs radio analyst, and he's like, the one thing that I have to tell you is that you're getting a great guy for that young core. Like, he's going to be great. And I think the other thing, too, is this is towards the end of the season now. There's about 30-ish regular season games left for a lot of teams. If you're going to bring in someone into the rotation, you probably want someone like Thaddeus Young, who you think will be able to have that, short learning curve and be ready for the postseason. And, we'll dive into him a little bit. I just want to mention, too, that he was part of that 2012 Sixers team that played the Boston Celtics in the second round that was featured in the film Uncut Gems.
Yep.
So that means we have acquired somebody from the Uncut Gems cinematic universe. That's always great energy. I'm pretty excited about this trade. Listen, I get it. We didn't get a superstar or anything like that, but I think going in, we were expecting to land a rotation player, and I think the Raptors did that.
Yeah, I think so. And I mean, I think the other part is just like how much value and appeal did expiring Goran plus a first round pick hold in the NBA. That's the part where, to me, I'm like, it's been very inconsistent when you look across the league. Because Portland made a number of deals. Like they offloaded Norm. Norm had long-term money, but like still, obviously a much better player than, let's say, a guy like Thaddeus Young, right? Especially at this age. He was offloaded for expirings and no first-round pick, right? CJ McCollum was moved along with other pieces. Obviously, it's a much bigger deal, but that was one first-round pick. You look at what the Celtics just did with acquiring Derek White for Josh Richardson. I don't think the Spurs have a huge use for Josh Richardson. Maybe he'll play for them, maybe he won't. I don't know. The Spurs have a lot of guards. But they traded a first-round pick with Josh Richardson, and they got back. Well, I guess they traded Romeo Langford as well, but I don't think he's really contributed yet so far. That's like if you just threw in Malachi in a deal. They got Derek White, who has a long-term contract, but also at the age that he's at is probably also a better player than Thaddeus Young. So I think for me, it's just like I'm a little bit confused as to sort of like what the general value was, because an expiring plus a first should probably get you someone that can get you a little bit more. But I guess in this case, it's not necessarily like just giving up a first in a vacuum. Like they get that second rounder back. So essentially moving down 10 slots is not the same thing as giving up a first. And when you think about a guy who can actually come in and contribute, I do feel confident that Thad can do that. My question is more with the fit, and I think with another hour plus here before all the trades are finalized and announced and everything like that, I do wonder, are the Raptors going to address other issues on the roster, which is mostly the shooting off the bench, especially now. Let's say you have Chris, you have Precious, and you have Thad Young coming off the bench. Those three can't play together. Well, maybe they can play together, but offensively, man. Like we saw, there was a play yesterday against OKC where Pascal was posting up, and literally 5 Thunder players were in the lane. Like literally his defender, a double team on the ball, a help defender at the rim, all standing 2 feet in the paint, and then 2 guards on the weak side, both having a foot in the paint ready to rotate over. Pascal still scored because the Thunder are garbage, but like that's the level of spacing that we can expect to see if you're going to try out some lineups with those guys combined together. Or maybe you want Thad to like space it out for you, but that's not the strength of his game. So I think right now, this current moment, I do expect more things to sort of balance out the makeup of the roster, quite honestly.
Yeah. So one of the guys I messaged was Steph No, who does a lot of great NBA work at the Sporting News, and he covered the Bulls pretty in depth last season when Thad was there. And he just talked about how he really likes this deal for Toronto just from a defensive standpoint, because Thad is very switchable, would fit well into the Raptors system, and is generally a smart player. And, I think you mentioned this too, like he's great. He's been ranked, in the top tier in terms of deflections and getting steals and things like that. Now, a lot of conversation in the last couple days about certain players like Jakob Poeltl. I know, Bogdan Bogdanovic was on the wish list. Danilo Gallinari was brought up. I saw some Talen Horton-Tucker noise this morning from the Lakers. When you zoom out and look at some of these potential other targets who might have been available and probably would have required the Raptors to pay a higher price, is there another player where you're like, I wish the Raptors went and got that guy?
Maybe with Derek White. Like if you wanted,
now that you know the price for Derek White.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, the issue with that is that he's on for a lot of long-term money. He just signed an extension, and yeah, I mean, maybe the Raptors are. Well, I mean, not maybe. I'm sure the Raptors are looking ahead to a situation where if Fred continues to play at this level, you want to keep Fred. He's going to cost the max. Right now, he's at 20. He's going to go to 30. OG, I think, even if he doesn't take that like starred leap, he will be in line for a raise just because his deal right now is below market value. Same thing for Gary. And then Scotty's a rookie right now. Eventually, you'll have to sign him to an extension.
Yeah, but Scotty, I guess, is way more longer term because you're going to have him under team control, I think, for like 6-7 years.
Yeah.
But I get your point.
So, I mean, other than that, though, I think I'm fine with everything else. I think that some of the smaller moves on the fringes, like, I'm looking in the YouTube chat right now, and I'm seeing, the Pacers getting in for Jalen Smith, for example. Like, those kind of deals I'm not too worried about. Or like the Pistons picking up Marvin Bagley, like these sort of upside swing deals, like that's cool, but none of these guys would have contributed to this team at all this year. I don't think in any significant way. So that I'm okay with. But then again, you do have some, you do have some longer term control on some of these guys, and maybe it's a little bit more exciting to think about. Like you get a guy who's been not necessarily meeting expectations just yet, but at the same time, you may be able to develop into something in the future. Whereas with that, maybe you re-sign him, maybe you don't. But like, it really depends on how he fits with the rest of the team this year. But I would very much like to see the next hour for the Raptors to sign someone else who can shoot, or trade for someone else who can shoot. That's what I'm trying to say. But I think there are other portions of this deal, and we'll definitely get into it with Blake, and maybe with Grange as well. It's just like, the Raptors move a little bit more under the luxury tax. They're already under luxury tax, but they're very close. Right, and Gary Trent Jr. had some incentives in his contract that might have pushed them over. So they're able to generate that room. Now, it's not necessarily like, they're just trying to save money or whatever. I just think it's prudent, generally speaking. There's like, you duck under the tax, you might get $20 million just in luxury tax payments. That's good for the team. The other part is that, depending on what they do with the roster spots now, because this was a 2-for-1 trade. There is no open roster spot right now that had been open all year. But at the same time, if you do end up cutting Eubanks, which probably they do, you can convert Justin Champagnie. Like there's some additional flexibility pieces that don't really matter necessarily to the team and how they compete night to night right now, but just with how they manage the roster in the offseason or even just like after the trade deadline. So yeah, you have a favorite Thad Young moment, man? What else you got from your Thad Young sources?
A couple of years ago when he was on the Pacers, you might remember this game. It was Pacers, Raptors, and Thad Young got really mad at a ref at the buzzer. Do you remember this at all?
No.
Okay. Yeah, anyways, I talked to him in the locker room after.
Oh, okay.
Because I was doing a story.
Damn, this guy really woj.
I've talked to every role player in the league.
Holy.
Yeah, I'm giving Sportsnet my 100% today. You're getting 100% from me today, Sportsnet.
My God.
So cut that extra check for me. No, but yeah, I honestly don't have anything to add. Like, he's honestly, like, in general, I just think it's going to be a good fit. Like, for me, going to this trade deadline, when you were mentioning guys like Yusuf Nurkic and some of these other names, my big concern was always, is this guy going to be in Nick Nurse's doghouse 2 weeks after he lands here?
Mm-hmm.
Because we know that Nick has a very high standard when it comes to two-way players. So, for me, this is a really nice fit. And again, I don't want to hype up Thaddeus Young as something that he's not. He's going to be a role player. He's going to come off the bench, maybe play 15, 20 minutes. I don't know. Like we saw last night in OKC, Nick couldn't even trust pulling his starters until there was 1:47 left, even though the game was way under control. So if you zoom out and look at it, I think the perspective for fans too is to be really happy that the Raptors have found a starting five that they trust.
That's more important than anything else.
That's more important than anything else, because coming into the season, we're talking about, should they trade Pascal? How's Pascal and Scotty going to fit? How's OG going to work as a number one option? What's Fred going to be like now that he has to take on more responsibility with Kyle gone? Did we make a mistake trading Norm for Gary? All those questions are gone right now. So they've got the starting five, and I know people were joking about the Raptors being like, oh, the Raptors have 5 untouchable players. They have the most untouchable. You got to define untouchable in like a specific way, right? Like this doesn't mean that the Raptors are never going to trade the starting five. It just means that they've earned the opportunity to show the front office what they can do in the playoffs.
Yeah.
And I think I'm really excited to see what this team can do now that they have added a piece. And like you mentioned, hopefully they add another piece. I am praying, though, that Chris Boucher between now and 3 p.m. is not traded, because breaking news, wow, I'm really woke today. Breaking news is that the Will Lou Chris Boucher interview has been tentatively confirmed. So the Raptors are on the road next week, and then it's All-Star weekend. So likely it'll happen in 2 weeks. So fingers crossed. Fingers crossed. Bobby Webster, put your 2 phones down. Masai, I don't even know, Masai, if you're involved right now. I feel like Masai's just like, Bobby,
how is he not
you
involved,
got this.
man?
You got this. Just run it by me. Let me know if Bogdan Bogdanovic is available. If not, go ahead and do this trade for Thad Young. But Chris Boucher cannot be traded. That's all I got to say. I don't care if you think it's good or bad for the team. For me personally, we need this interview to happen.
Yeah, I'm excited for it. And obviously Chris has been playing great. I think for the team, they do have other avenues potentially to sort of move around. Maybe you look at moving Kem Birch, right? Now, with Kem, the issue maybe to another team receiving Kem is like, okay, he hasn't really been healthy this year, and he has 2 more guaranteed years on his contract. Maybe a team just takes him in for free, but you're not necessarily going to get great value from that. In any case, though, I do think they need to add just one more shooter, because right now, look, the good thing is the rotation has now extended from 7 to 8.
Oh, let's go.
Yeah, that's right.
Nick Nurse was running a burger joint. He was running 5 guys, man.
Yeah. Well, that's pretty good. I like
Yeah,
that.
sorry, I didn't
Yeah.
get that in on Monday, so I
Okay.
wanted to throw it out here.
Very good.
Yeah.
In any case, yeah, I mean, you have 8 guys in the rotation. I think defensively, you're just as strong, if not even stronger than before. Offensively, I still think I need to know how it works, but right now the Raptors are making it work regardless. So it's not like necessarily their spacing got worse in any means. You know what I'm saying? Their spacing was already bad, and they add another non-shooter who can do more offensively than, let's say, Precious, for example. Again, just to let's pretend you go into the playoffs and you're relying on an important moment in the fourth quarter. You know, you've been down 12 points against a better team, but your starters play the entire third quarter. They look amazing. Okay, and they erase the 12-point.
The answer is no if I trust Precious to come in and fill 3 minutes.
Yeah.
No.
So now you have that as the option.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah. So, and I think, you know what, the interesting thing to me is like the front office with this trade is saying this is a vote of confidence to this group. This is consistent with what they have said, is just that like this group right now has shown so much, especially of late, especially over the last 2 months, right? The graphic on the broadcast yesterday, Raptors like the 5th best team since like December or something, right? Um, you need to sort of help them out. And so it went from like coming into the year, Masai being on record, this is a developmental year, things like that. While a lot of development happened in a very short amount of time, to the point where they're willing to trade their first round pick because they didn't plan on tanking the season. Obviously, they don't plan on tanking the season, but you know, like that became less valuable to them. They're willing to move down a few spots in the draft. And then, you know, on the flip side of that, they're gonna add a short term piece to the roster. So I think it's a vote of confidence to the team. And again, I want to see what else happens. Really, there's obviously, as people know, if you've been around an NBA trade deadline, there's definitely tons of trades that happen right before 3 p.m. and then also probably another 5 or 6 that trickle afterwards. So we'll see what happens. Hey, by the way, before we go to our first break, actually.
Oh, we're not even going to talk about Goran during this first segment. I love it.
Oh no! You know what? Actually, let's talk about Groin. You know,
We will,
right.
but what were you going to ask me?
Yeah, what do you think of Malachi taking out that last shot yesterday in that OKC game?
No, I turned it off when the subs checked in. So.
You didn't see Utah's 2 baskets? Come on,
Oh,
man.
Utah doubled his points since returning from health and safety protocols. Is that what he did?
He absolutely did.
Shout outs to Ty Jerome, another guy who hit 3 threes in a game that Svi can't do.
Okay, to be fair, Ty Jerome got up 12 shots. What was he doing? I don't know.
He was playing for the OKC Thunder.
Okay, fine. So let me explain this situation.
Oh, God.
Shot clocks turn off.
Yep.
Raptors are up 19. And the Raptors have the ball. Malachi's bringing the ball up as the point guard. He's dribbling. The shot clock's turned off. This is not going to be a turnover on the box score. This is just going to be nothing. And with 2 seconds left, he just jacks up a 3.
He didn't make it, right?
No, of course not. But
Okay.
like, your thoughts?
I have no thoughts on that, man.
Yeah?
Anyways,
Okay. All right.
if anybody cares,
Is
Washington.
that not a faux pas?
If anything, the show's full of full pas. If anybody cares, Shams is reporting that the Wizards are sending Montrezl Harrell to Charlotte. So we'll just keep reading off trades as they come in.
Cool.
So
Another guy who doesn't play defense. Good.
So let's spend 2 minutes here on Goran before we take the break and bring
Yeah.
Blake Murphy in on the other side.
Sure.
Because I'm sure people are going to ask, so how are we going to evaluate the Kyle Lowry sign and trade? Because everybody was like, okay, let's wait till what they get for Goran, and then we'll know the final pieces. So officially, the Raptors get Thaddeus Young and Precious Achua, and obviously a bit of a swap in the draft capital. How do we evaluate the Kyle Lowry sign and trade now that it's quote unquote finalized? It is what it is.
It is what it is. I think, look, the thing with sign and trades is this. This was a very unique case. The Raptors, honestly, I think the optics of the DeMar trade, even though to me they're fantastic, they just acquired Kawhi Leonard and they won the championship. That's the end of the story for me. But I think obviously how your reputation carries around the league and stuff like that, that's a hard thing to see. A guy who done that much for your franchise, blindsided like that, you cannot, under any circumstances, do that same thing to the other franchise player at that time, which that being Kyle. So you go into that situation, and you go into the last year's trade deadline. Clearly, they were willing to move him. They were willing to move Norm. They moved Norm, right? But there were, other rumored deals. The Raptors were talking to the Lakers, we're talking to the Sixers, talking to the Heat. Ultimately speaking, all those other teams kind of passed. Sixers went for George Hill for some reason. The Heat went for Victor Oladipo for some reason. And the Lakers just aren't an appealing trade.
Oh, the domino effect of the Lakers not somehow getting Kyle Lowry last year to where they are right now.
I didn't want anybody from the Lakers, though.
I know.
That's the thing. Like,
But I just want to point out, so many teams in the West are down horrendously right now.
yeah, the West is trash. I'm not gonna lie to you. The West is really bad, and the East is way better right now, especially given what's happened in the trade deadline so far with the Raptors acquiring Thad Young.
So if you were to give a grade for the sign and trade,
no, you can't even grade it
No,
in a way
grade it.
because
grade it. You're a high school teacher. You got to grade it.
yeah, it's a B minus.
Okay, yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, look, a sign and trade. Look, you get Precious, you get Thad Young, who you can use in your rotation for a year. You move down slightly in the draft. You get some like trade exceptions. You move a
It's
little
really
bit
the
under the
most.
tax. Like,
It's really the most you can maneuver
you basically
within.
you only got Precious. Is what I'm trying to say.
But it's the most you can do in a sign and trade scenario. You're never gonna come out.
It's the most you can do in a sign and trade scenario if you want to comply with what Kyle wanted.
That's fair.
And all Kyle
That's
wanted
fair.
to do was sign with Miami
Yeah, no, that's fair. That's
or
fair.
be traded to Miami. And Miami, knowing that he wanted to come to Miami, literally there's a tampering investigation of this. So
That's right. The
everyone
Raptors
knew.
should get 5 first-round picks.
Absolutely.
Adam Silver, Mark Tatum, Kiki Vandeweghe.
It's Joe Smith
Those
all
are their
over
names.
again.
Those are their names. Email them.
Yeah. If that's what you know, then the Heat weren't really going to give up that much for him. So ultimately, they get Precious for him. Again, you don't get that much in sign and trades. It's not just the Raptors decided, oh, we will take Kyle Lowry in a vacuum, and as good of a player he is, and we're going to trade him for just Precious, Thad Young, and move some picks around.
No, it's
But
completely fair.
at the same time, if people are disappointed or sort of unsatisfied, I get it as well, because it's not like you got this huge haul, especially because I think people have a really high standard for what the Raptors do with trades, given the fact that you can just list them off. Like all the Raptors, generally speaking, make these very, very good trades.
Yeah, this was actually what we were
just
gonna.
a regular trade.
This was actually what we are gonna do. Just list off all of Masai's trades in the first hour. Thankfully,
that was our contingency plan if nothing got
thankfully
moved
the
at
trade was
deadline.
the trade happened. I was gonna ask you, where were you when the Kawhi trade happened and all of this stuff. Lastly, real quickly on Goran Dragic, and we're gonna ban him from this program. So Goran is headed to San Antonio. All expectations are he's gonna get bought out. And Chris Haynes of Yahoo Sports reported earlier today that the Dallas Mavericks are favorites to land Goran. So I guess Goran potentially could end up where he wanted to be all along. Do you want to say a farewell to the Goran Dragic era in Toronto?
Yeah, so everyone knows me as the person who watches warm-ups very intently, and my lasting Goran Dragic memory will be early in the season, Dallas Mavericks come to Toronto. And he was still with the team at that time. Not playing, but with the team. Pre-game, he comes out mad early. Okay? He sits down, talks courtside, sits down with Boban, chats him up for a while. Great time.
How do you remember this in full detail, by the way?
Because I knew at that time this guy's a traitor, and I was not happy with this. I don't care. Do that stuff behind the scenes. There's restaurants. At that time the city was more open. Go for dinner with your friends afterwards. Go for dinner before. I don't know. Anyway, whatever. 2 hours before, he's chatting with Boban. That's cool, man. Everyone loves Boban. Luka comes over, chats with Luka. Yeah, that's cool. It's like how many Slovenian players in the NBA, right? Like clearly there's a brotherhood. They won the EuroLeague title together, or the Eurobasket title together, which was a great run by Goran, by the way. Then their coach from that run comes over, Igor Kokoshkov. He was the assistant coach with the Mavericks, and he was the head coach of that Slovenian team at that time. He comes over to chat. Mark Cuban comes over to chat, right? Trainers come over to chat from the Mavericks. And at some point, I'm just like, are you going to warm up and do your job today? And that was his answer. No, the whole time. Now, I'm not saying, oh, yeah, you can't talk to, guys around the league. That's cool. I'm not even kidding. This went on for an hour plus. People were around. Have some shame. Do your job. I'm just sick of this guy. Like, I'm genuinely sick of this guy. I knew, obviously, the history coming into this was he tripped OG Anunoby by, on the floor, reaching out and tripping a guy, grabbing his foot. That's a dirty play, right? DeMar got into it with this guy. We played him many years with the Heat. Did not like this guy. He comes in, before he even comes in, this is this team. This is the Raptors. I got higher ambitions than playing for the Raptors. So he wants to get bought out by the Mavericks, who are one game above the Raptors in the standings right now. Yeah, anyway.
Listen, man.
Not going to be remembered fondly. That's what I'm trying to say.
Farewell to Goran Dragic. I'm going to wish him the best of luck. I guess you won't.
No, I won't.
All right, let's get Blake Murphy on the other side.
Yeah, let's take a quick break right here. I'm your host, Will Lou. You've been listening to The Raptors Show, powered by DoorDash on Sportsnet 590, The Fan. Welcome back to the Raptors Show on Sportsnet 590 The Fan, powered by DoorDash. I'm your host, Will Liu. I continue to be joined by producer and co-host Alex Wong. We are joined for the second segment by Blake Murphy from the Fan Morning Show. Blake, how you doing?
Doing well. How are you guys?
Blake, are you in your hot dog suit? What's going on, man?
Yeah. I made a promise that if I didn't successfully get the Raptors under the tax and get them two capable rotation players, that I would have to send a photo of me in a hot dog suit to all my friends, as they do on Nathan For You. So here I am in a hot dog suit, unless the Raptors can come through in the next 24 minutes.
Do you expect them to?
No, they're still working. I know. I think they would obviously like some backcourt help.
Can we get a
They
shooter?
still-
Can we get a third guard?
Yeah, and they have like a little bit of assets. Obviously, Dragic was the big piece. There's still scenarios where you could expand that to a holy cow, Kristaps Porzingis to the Wizards.
Mm.
Jeez,
Okay.
that was distracting. I apologize. There are still scenarios where that Spurs deal could expand into something three-team, and shake out a little differently. I also, it was well known that once the Harden Simmons talks picked up, that everyone around the league was kind of in a holding pattern, waiting to see how that would shake out. And,
Yep.
hey, is Nick Claxton going to shake free from that? Is Matisse Thybulle? What else is going on? So there's been a little bit of a holdup with that, and now we're seeing things like the Porzingis Dinwiddie framework that's slowly trickling in now. So yeah, I could see the Raptors definitely doing one of those smaller, like the standard is of course Austin Day, Fernando DeColo. That's probably the kind of thing you're looking at 305. It comes in while everyone's focused on bigger stuff, but I would guess this is where we're at. Like if forced to choose, but I mean they're still trying to tweak something.
You know what? Fair enough. Obviously, their big piece to move was Goran plus that first round pick. They both go for the Thad Young thing, and of course, it's not just like they gave up a first round pick in a vacuum. They essentially just moved down about 10, maybe 15 spots in the draft, depending on sort of how the season shapes up. But yeah, what are your initial thoughts to this deal? What were the Raptors' motivations? And also, my question mostly is, yes, Thad Young's going to make the rotation. Of course, he's going to make the rotation. But how do the Raptors manage the lineup a little bit? Because to me, there's still some redundancies, I would say, and also some obviously lack of shooting.
That's one way to put it, is redundancies. Yes, your entire bench is 6'8", 6'9" guys, and even more now. Which is, look, it's still, if we're talking depth, adding a guy for nothing, which is what this is in pure roster terms, not asset terms. It's going to help. It's going to do something for you. However, yeah, they don't have, like, if this is where things stand as of, like if they're done, you basically are in a spot where, well, you better give Malachi Flynn another shot. You better I don't want to advocate for Svi getting another shot, but Utah better get another shot. Like, you need some sort of non-power forward play off the bench. And don't get me wrong, Thad can do some of that. Like, Thad's been a 90th plus percentile passer as far as big men go. If you want to classify him as a 4/4/5, there aren't many guys that pass as well as him out of like elbow scenarios and as the roll man. And I'm sure you could open up a lot of DHO stuff with his playmaking ability.
Mhm.
That is not the same thing as having shot creators that your offense can kind of flow around. So I don't really know what the rotation would look like functionally right now. Like, I guess you just keep doing the thing where you make sure one of Fred or Pascal are on the court at all times, and they're kind of the initiator. But like, Will, how many times have you posted screen grabs, or you and I have broke down a play on this show where, OG's in the post and there are four guys on him because the Raptors have two guys in the dunker and another guy cutting into the paint, or Siakam's getting doubled, and the second he takes a foot toward the rim, there's like three extra bodies shading over on him. That's not going to get any better with this. Thad Young does a lot of stuff well. Shooting the three and spacing the floor is not one of them. And again, you can get some spacing by like putting the ball in that guy's hands a little bit more, but it still doesn't change the fact that you're one of the weaker and the weakest 3-point shooting bench in the league. And that's not getting any better here. So my initial thought is it doesn't resolve the backcourt situation and your depth there. At the same time, while this isn't sexy and it doesn't plug that hole necessarily, Thad Young, we're like 11 months removed from every contender wanting to get Thad Young off the Bulls.
Yeah, of
And
course.
I don't know that, the 26 games he played in and out of the Spurs rotation is an indication that he's no longer useful. I think there's real utility there. And then look, the thing that fans don't really want to hear is you turned Goran Dragic, who wasn't doing anything for you, and you traded down, 10 to 15 spots in the draft. And in doing so, you got Thad Young, who is more useful for you and has bird rights. Drew Eubanks, who, whatever, he fills the last open roster spot. You also created small to moderate size trade exception, and you saved 3.5 million, which when you're in your third straight year of uh, hampered revenues because of the pandemic is not nothing. So there are a lot of reasons to do this trade. Just none of them are, hey, your backcourt and your bench looks better now.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, okay. So let's talk about functionally with Thad Young in the lineup. Is he okay? So I guess my question is: so you're a scenario where you're bringing in Thad, Precious, and Chris Boucher. Can they play together functionally together, all three at once? Is there a way to make
Probably.
that work? Like, I think defensively, clearly it works. No issue with that. It's just offensively, you're really asking a lot from your main guys. You really are. But I mean, look,
Yeah.
your main guys are also scoring like 100 points per game for you these days.
Yeah, and
So clearly they
that's
can do
30,
it. But yeah,
that's 33, almost 34. So I don't know, like certainly defensively in that iteration you just laid out, the Thad Boucher Precious trio. You don't want Thad guarding the three man in that setup, I don't think anymore. Like I don't know if you trust Boucher with the wing so Precious can still be the pick and roll guy because of his switchability. I'm not sure exactly how you do that. Now, opposing benches probably don't have enough weapons to fully exploit that anyway. But offensively, it's going to be tough, right? Like I just talked about Thad's playmaking, but a lot of that stuff is as the second man in an action. It's not a lot of, hey, the ball's in your hand and you're running a pick and roll with the center. Like he's more of a dot connector than an advantage creator. So I'm a little curious how that's going to work and how that's going to look. I don't think this is the type of move where the Raptors, like, if they haven't come off their starting lineup yet, I don't think this is the kind of move that nudges them to do so. But you certainly got to tweak the rotation patterns and stuff here because it's very odd to bring four power forwards off the bench. Um, yeah, I don't know. Like I just brought up Thad's synergy stats from last year,
Mm,
and even when he was like a much higher usage, a much more functional player with the Bulls, like he had 4 possessions the whole year that he finished as the pick and roll ball handler.
right. Yeah.
He's just not running a lot of that, and
Of
only
course.
9 if you include passes. So there's just not a lot of. He didn't isolate a lot either. It's you can actually do some interesting stuff with him out of the post where like some of the OG and Scotty stuff you've been doing, you could just feed to Thad as well, and
Sure. Yeah.
maybe you turn Scotty into more of a cutter. But those pure bench units, I don't really know where the playmaking is gonna come from unless you do the hey Scotty's off the bench swap at some point, or you just tweak the rotations that way.
Yeah, fair enough. I was going to ask you about some of the other deals that have taken place because Alex asked me this question earlier. Is did you feel any sort of sense of maybe hey maybe the Raptors could have jumped in here or there and that stuff like that? Because I mean the Spurs ultimately also did a very similar deal with Derek White as well. They got a first round pick. They got a salary which actually does have another year tacked onto it with Josh Richardson. Um, and I guess they got a fringe prospect in Langford, but I doubt he's going to turn into something there. Um, is that something that you would have liked to see the Raptors jump in on? Because to me, I thought Derek White is, I mean that's a very good player for a first round pick and essentially just filler salary as well.
Yeah, that's one where you get a sense of the direction the Raptors are going and where they think they are on the contention path because Derek White is a guy who on paper fits the Raptors. I mean, he certainly fits the Raptors defensive ethos. He's a 6'4" guard who, doesn't pick up a ton of steals, but he's a good shot blocker for a guard. He's like kind of a pest defensively, and he's 27, so he fits kind of the Pascal Fred thing. Now, where I think it kind of tips you off is that he is owed money for quite a distance into the future, and
Right.
I had heard that the Raptors were willing to take on money back for Dragic if it was next year's money, but it seems like that 2023 cutoff where Fred VanVleet and Gary Trent Jr. could both opt out, that's kind of where they didn't want to take money beyond.
Mm.
Maybe they're trying to keep just flexibility long term. Maybe it's a bit of a pivot point for them salary wise. But I think, yeah, that suggests to me that they don't think this core is close enough where Derek White moves things meaningfully, at least not enough to sacrifice the longer term cap flexibility, which is interesting because again, Derek White's would have been a good fit and would
Yeah.
have been the asset cost wasn't crazy high there. Like if all San Antonio wanted in that deal was to get out of the money, then Dragic would have been even better for them. Maybe they're going to reroute Josh Richardson in the offseason or something like that. We'll see how that all shakes out. But yeah, it does
Can't
feel
have that
like
much
a
value.
guy like Derek White would have been attainable with what the Raptors had to offer.
Yeah, and this Derek White situation reminds me a lot of almost the San Antonio thing with Norm, or not San Antonio thing, the Clippers thing with Norm. It's just like his contract is quite long, and I think there probably is. There's a lot of, every trade deadline. There's a lot of moves made to sort of balance the books, but especially in his case, like he's owed 18.8 million guaranteed in 2024, 2025, right? And the Raptors just don't have that much long term salary on their books like that. So, yeah, I guess. Alex, did you have anything else to ask Blake? You know, you and Blake are friends.
Man, I'm just trying to prepare the second hour of the show for you
okay,
in
all
real
right.
time, man.
Right.
Yeah, me and Blake are friends. Do we have to talk trade, or can I talk about how Blake and I were trying to come up with a new nickname for you?
Oh,
Oh,
okay,
yeah.
no, definitely
Blake,
go there.
Blake,
Don't
the
talk
floor
trade.
is yours, man.
Yeah. Will, have you watched The Righteous Gemstones? I know you don't really watch TV.
Yeah,
Will's
no.
favorite TV shows at the end of the year are like 5 Raptors like games.
No, my favorite TV show is Raptors in 30.
Your favorite movie of all time was the 2019 Raptors championship run.
Absolutely, I have it on Blu-ray.
It's a good flick. But no, we're gonna start calling Will Uncle Baby Willie, which is this would be
Okay.
funnier if Will understood the reference, but hopefully someone listening understands the reference.
No, for sure. That's a Righteous Gemstones reference. Do you like to go by Will, William, or Willie? Has anyone ever called you Willie?
No, Willie is a hard no. There was a Willie who bullied me when I first came to Canada.
Oh wow!
So yeah, no, I'm sticking with Will or Will.
Okay.
Do you
Yeah.
still have like tabs on this guy and like what he's up to now? Like, you still have him on Facebook or anything like that?
This was pre-Facebook. This, if you can.
No,
imagine
but
that, yeah.
I don't know.
This
I
was like
didn't
writing
know if,
people's
like,
names and their number, and maybe their email on a card. On a,
I hate
on a
this guy.
Rolodex.
Look, man,
Yeah.
I'm trying to track this guy down for you.
No.
I'm trying to get vengeance.
He lives
for you.
somewhere in the Weston and Lawrence area.
All right. Let's not put a hit out on live radio. Come on, man. What's going on? We've realized that
I despise that dude.
we can only exhaust 48 minutes talking about Thaddeus Young. But no, I was asking Will earlier, and Will had a very spirited response. When you think about Goran Dragic's short time here in Toronto, and obviously people familiar with him going to Miami for the last couple of months and surfacing in photos and things like that, like, what do you make of just, what's your farewell message for the Goran Dragic era?
I don't have much on it. I will say that one of my favorite things is when a situation like this happens and the guy plays just a couple games. Like, I love that someone 5 or 7 years from now is going to be on Basketball Reference and see that Goran Dragic played 5 games for the Raptors and be so confused. Or Chris Wilder is going to tweet out that like the next Raptors rookie passes Goran Dragic on the all-time scoring list, and people are like, "Who? Like, what? Are there photos of him in a Raptors uniform?" And there are. I love when a guy plays just a couple games before moving on. So that is part of it. All the reporting has been that there has been a legitimate personal issue Dragic is dealing with. So I hope that everything there is, manageable, and, all the energy goes out to him and stuff. At the same time, it's been a little fun to joke about with during the absence and stuff like that. I don't know. I don't feel this is one of those things where like it
didn't
was what
matter.
it was
It didn't
since
really
day
matter.
one.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I know we did the whole like, oh, he's gonna play. He could be a useful rotation guy. Like, he's a year and a half removed from being the third best player on a really good Miami Heat team. But despite all of that, like, this was always like, we all knew the score. We all know how dead contracts in the NBA work and why you hold on the deadline and stuff. It's just, I'll just be very thankful to not have to explain the situation anymore or come up with jokes about why he's not in the lineup.
Yeah, and the other thing I was asking Will too, I wanted him to grade the Kyle Lowry sign-in trade now that the Goran Dragic piece has been finalized, and we were just kind of like, well, it is what it is. It's a sign-in trade. How do you look at the Kyle Lowry sign-in trade now that all the pieces are complete?
It's tough because so much of the analysis of that is colored by, well, what do you actually believe the Raptors could have got at the trade deadline last year? And the reporting on that has been fairly inconsistent. Like, obviously, we love to joke about the Taylor Horton Tucker aspect of it, especially as they shop him now for like anything. I don't think like Maxi and picks was ever on the table, actually. So, then if you believe that nothing of substance was on the table at the trade deadline, then the sign and trade's a win regardless because you turned nothing, which is what you would have gotten if Kyle just left, into a flyer on Precious Achua and Thad Young and trade a player exception, right? Like that's what you did with it. But if you believe that there was a situation where you could have traded Kyle Lowry at the deadline, and maybe it's a little more awkward in terms of that relationship, then maybe you feel differently about it. I'm not a big fan of doing the like post facto you turn this at, like, I think trade trees are fun and everything. And I love firing up the baseball reference and seeing, oh wow, Kyle Drabeck for Roy Halladay and like that stuff way down the line. But like for right now, the Raptors can't really look at it that way. That's how you end up chasing bad money with good money, being, hey, we don't like the way the sign and trade looks now. We got to do something to salvage it. That's called chase betting, and it's not a very strong financial strategy. So it's very much a is what it is situation. Glad they turned Dragic into something. The one thing that's going to be a little weird to look back on is the whole Lowry sign and trade saga. Like, they traded down in draft equity as part of that trade tree, not significantly, but it'll look a certain way probably to move down from like 20 to 35 or whatever, to turn Lowry into Precious and Thad Young.
Yeah, yeah, I hear you. Again, this is a very unique situation. That's the thing. That's why I said to Alex. It was just like, you can't ruin this relationship after you ruin the DeMar relationship. You just can't. There's no way
Mhm.
you could do that. So there was as much optics around that one, I think, as anything else. And obviously, look, the front office's job is to make the best moves available. This is, for a sign and trade, acceptable for me. It's not exceptional by any means, but it's acceptable. Blake, I look forward to talking to you back on Tuesdays again. We can no longer talk about trade deadlines. Probably going to ask you about what the Raptors might do in the buyout market. So get your
Oh
answers
no.
prepared. And
Yeah, you good next
To-
you good next Tuesday, Blake? I'm trying to
yeah,
make
of
plans.
course. You guys ready for the Tomas Satoransky propaganda or what? Or what?
I'll
Whichever
take 'em.
Zeller got bought out, I forget.
Oh, pull
I think
pull
it
up the
was
game
Cody.
of Satoransky against Team Canada. Let's get that
don't. What are you
propaganda
doing,
going.
man? What's wrong with you? All right, Blake,
Yeah.
go enjoy your afternoon.
You guys are letting me go?
Yeah,
Yeah, we're letting you go.
don't sweat too much in that hot dog suit, all right?
Yeah, I'll try not to. Hey, if the Raptors make a move in the next 7 minutes, I don't have to post it. It's only then. So
No, I
we'll
appreciate you
see.
being on the Raptor show with Uncle Baby Willie.
Uncle
Uh,
Baby Willie.
that's
Have a good one,
terrible.
guys.
I appreciate you. Yeah,
So 5 more minutes to go
yeah,
until the quote unquote official trade deadline.
yeah. What do you want to do? Take a break and then come back with actual news, or?
Yeah, let's take a break.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, that's a good spot for us to take a break. I'm your host, Will Lou. You've been listening to The Raptor Show, powered by DoorDash on Sportsnet 590, The Fan. Welcome back to the Raptors Show on Sportsnet 590, The Fan, powered by DoorDash. I'm your host, Will Lou. A reminder, we are with you from 2 to 4 today because the NBA trade deadline is about to wrap up in about 15 seconds. Of course, as always, there will be many trades trickling in, and later on in the show, we will follow up with Michael Grange to sort of get a full scope of sort of what the Raptors have been doing in the front office and sort of what the calls and conversations have been. Definitely get the inside look at the trade deadline from the Raptors' perspective. If you missed it already, the Raptors acquired Thaddeus Young for Goran Dragic, which is a good addition for the short term, and we discussed that a lot in the first hour of the show. I continue to be joined by my producer and co-host, Alex Wong. And, yeah, we're going to take some Twitter questions in the second segment here. Last thing, anything in the, anything come down last second, maybe?
No, just texting some people around the league.
Oh, more people around the league.
It's been a bit quiet, so we'll see what trickles in. Sources are real quiet right now. But I just want to say shout out to everybody listening, obviously, on Sportsnet 590, The Fan, and also into the YouTube stream. I think we've got a good size audience here today versus just a regular day. There's obviously a lot of interest in the trade deadline. And a reminder, if you're just a new listener, subscribe to the Raptor Show with Will Lou, wherever you get your podcasts. And for everybody that's been tuning in, listening for the last couple months, just want to let everybody know that we're going to be on Sportsnet 360. So we'll be on TV starting next Monday.
That's right.
2 to 3 p.m. And before everybody asks, everything else will be the same in terms of the YouTube live stream, podcast feed, and on radio and all of that stuff. So everything else is the same, just adding an extra component. So excited about that. Some Raptors news. Fred VanVleet is out tonight with groin soreness against the Houston Rockets. So you're
probably just rest.
You're talking earlier about Malachi Flynn putting up that 3. So Malachi, get that shot ready for tonight.
Is he going to play? I doubt it.
Yeah, actually.
It's going to be Delano and Pascal. What do you mean?
I love every time Delano gets the ball, he just speeds all the way to the other end of the floor.
Yeah, no, but it's great.
Yeah, he's a human turbo button.
As Michael Grange said on Twitter yesterday, I think one of the reasons why Delano won that spot is just because he sprints more. And I'm like, damn, Malachi really lost his spot to sprinting.
Yeah, your favorite Dennis Schroeder is headed from Boston to the Houston Rockets.
Dennis Schroeder.
Yeah, okay. Shouts Herbie Kuhn.
Shouts to Herbie Kuhn.
I thought as we wait,
every time he plays here.
As I text my people around the league and as we wait for the Woj and Shams notifications to come in, we should talk about some of these other trades that happened, especially in the Eastern Conference, that will impact the Raptors as they try to push for that top 6 seed. Obviously, the biggest trade today, James Harden is headed to the Philadelphia 76ers. Ben Simmons is going to Brooklyn along with Seth Curry, Andre Drummond, and 2 first-round picks. I think there's other draft picks and other fillers like a Paul Millsap, but that's essentially the framework of the deal. We were talking about this off air a little bit. I think this is a nice trade for both teams. In my opinion, I think Brooklyn can build a contender still this season around Kevin Durant. To me, the biggest question is Kyrie Irving's availability. I'm really excited to see Ben Simmons in that environment, and KD is supposed to be coming back from injury shortly after the All-Star break. The Nets right now are down bad. They've lost 9 in a row. They are firmly in the play-in tournament right now. Now, everything is still pretty clogged up in the East in terms of the top 8. So 1 win streak, and the Nets will be right back into it. I think this is a great trade for both teams, given the circumstances.
Yeah, I thought they made logical trading partners. I thought Kyrie would have been the one going out potentially, but I think with the way Harden has sort of moved this year, he didn't sign the extension. It's pretty clear that he wanted to move on, right? Especially with more, I don't know, just more momentum picking up on that from his perspective. By the way, shout out to James Harden, as you mentioned. Anytime there's a slight bit of inconvenience at work, he moves on.
I've respected James Harden a lot over these past few days because he has forced himself out of 2 work situations in the last 2 seasons. He was not happy in Houston. He saw the writing on the wall. Their window was closed. So he says, let me get to Brooklyn and play with KD and Kyrie. And they ended up playing, I believe, like 16 games total together.
Yep.
And KD was out. Kyrie's a part-time player. And James Harden was like, this is a lot of work. I'm trying to work 3 days a week like my man Alex. And he's like, I got to get out of here. I got to go play with Joel Embiid. So I respect people who, once they realize the work situation is not good, they're just up and out of here. And I saw Michael Lee, NBA reporter, said there were former NBA players, and I think one of them texted him and said, James Harden is going to have a very hard time getting a former teammate to introduce him at his Hall of Fame induction.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is a bit of an overreaction, to be honest.
Yeah. It's
So many superstars have forced trades. James Harden's career is not over. He could potentially go to Philly here and win a championship with Embiid. And worst case scenario, you think Daniel House Jr. is not going to say yes to introducing James Harden?
I thought it was for sure going to be Luke Richard Mbamute. You know,
Wow, that's a deep cut.
That's a real deep cut, but he was a big part of that team.
I'm interested in Simmons, though. Ben Simmons. I think there obviously is going to be a huge spotlight on him.
He just needs to go. I mean, even just for him personally, like it's just obviously the situation wasn't working out for him. He didn't want to stay, and he was able to move on. I think the other portion of this that's going to be interesting is definitely when the owners discuss the new CBA moving forward. I think they'll be trying to put in more restrictions in terms of how much players can influence their own movement. But that's to be fair, I stand on the players' side on that. Like,
no, at the end
if
of
you're
it,
not happy, ultimately, like
the players are
move.
the players run the league.
Yeah.
And
But I mean, we're also talking about billionaires who like to run the world, so they're generally not happy with players running the league.
All right, get ready for a whole year of lockout shows between me and you.
Oh my god,
It's gonna be tough. We're really gonna.
how many times can we watch Rush Hour, man? I might have to actually watch Rush Hour.
We might have to
3
watch
this time.
Shaolin Soccer too.
Hey, we have to. We should, just because that should be an educational
That's
curriculum.
that's a Stone Cold classic. But when you're looking at the East right now,
Mhm.
like we mentioned, about 30-ish games left in the schedule for all the teams. How do you stack up the contenders in the East when you think about
That's a good question.
playoff opponents and who's most likely to come out of the East? The other thing I'll mention, in a multi-team trade today, the Milwaukee Bucks picked up Raptors Show favorite Serge Ibaka.
Mm.
And you were saying this is a little bit of a Brook Lopez insurance, right?
Yeah, look, everyone loves Serge. Everyone dislikes the Bucks, so this is not a great union from that perspective. I think for myself, I just want to see Serge get healthy again because he hasn't been the same guy since. Like the Clippers could very much use a guy like Serge, but they moved on for him because of the fact that he's just hasn't come back healthy yet. And hopefully he will come back healthy because right now he's a shell of himself compared to how great of a player he used to be. Yeah, I mean, the Bucks, I mean, they need somebody to be a reliable big for them. You know, Brook Lopez is hurt. He's been hurt for pretty much the whole season. Who knows if he comes back? You know, so hopefully if one of these guys gets healthy for them, it'll help them a lot. But in the meantime, it's Bobby Portis and Giannis.
Yeah.
I think we'll see how Harden and Embiid fit. I think you really would need Harden to sacrifice some of what he's been doing because he hasn't really played with a high usage big man since Dwight Howard. And that didn't really work that great. I mean, to be fair, Dwight was on his decline at that point, offensively at least. And so whatever, but you know, and Harden, you know, I would say he's the number 2 option right now based on how well Embiid's played this season. So there would be some adjustments there, but I think ultimately, you know, when it comes time to a playoff setting and you have those 2 guys running a pick and roll for you offensively, that's pretty terrifying. I don't know if they definitely got better, but I actually don't know how much they tangibly improved their ceiling just yet. I definitely want to see how that pairing works out for Brooklyn. I think if Ben Simmons comes back healthy, now that team has so much shooting, right? Like a closing lineup for them defensively probably is not going to get many stops, but Patty Mills or Kyrie, right? You have, if Joe Harris gets healthy, which doesn't seem like it this season, maybe it's just not going to happen for him, but even without him, right? You have Seth Curry, you have KD, you have Ben Simmons running in the middle of the floor, maybe as your center, maybe as your point center. I don't know, but that team can definitely score. I mean, they already could score before, but that team could definitely score. I think obviously you can live with Harden's drop off in offense because of the fact that you have, if Kyrie's able to play the games or whatever, you know, that's a big question mark. But KD obviously can take on as much offensive load as you give him. And then you also get a defensive upgrade for him. Plus you get depth. I think that's the other thing for the Sixers or for the Nets is they're in win now mode. They need depth immediately, guys who can actually play on a basketball court for them reliably. So even though you look at a team like, or you look at a player like Andre Drummond, that's not necessarily like a world breaker, but like he's going to play for them. And they need guys to play for them, especially big bodies in center. A lot of these older guys that they've signed, you know, in the past couple of years here, LaMarcus, Blake Griffin, you know, Paul Millsap. These guys have been a little bit too washed to like actually contribute for Brooklyn. So I don't mind the deal for Brooklyn. I think they probably got slightly better if they can get Kyrie to play consistently. And
Yeah, I think that's a big question. And I think the depth thing is a really good point. And it should be noted, too, that Kevin Durant signed a 4-year, $198 million extension last summer with the team. So they're going to have KD there now, of course, unless he wants to force his way out like James Harden did at some point. But I'm telling you, man, I know the Nets look down bad right now, but you get into the playoffs with KD, with Ben Simmons playing well, with the rest of this group, that's a really scary team to me. If I would put you on the spot right now, who do you think is the favorite in the East?
I still like Miami.
Hmm.
I still like Miami. Yeah.
Yeah,
I
they're
would
a
say
scary team, fully healthy.
they probably have the most two-way players. They don't have the best offensive player, and they don't even probably have a top 5 offensive player in the conference.
Yeah, but that's a great team, right, in terms of the depth.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
depth is really good. Defensively, they're really good. They're able to run their offense consistently. You know, they have a really great coach, and yeah, I don't know. I believe in that squad.
You know what we need is Sixers Nets in the first round,
Ooh,
and the Raptors on the other side of the bracket against, say, the Chicago Bulls.
I love that. Yes.
And then beat the Bulls in 6. You know, shouts to DeMar. We'll give you a couple of tribute videos during the series.
Come on, man.
And then we'll play Milwaukee in the second round, right?
Okay.
Team's going to be in shambles because Bobby Portis and Serge are going to get into a fight
Yep.
before game 1.
As
so
teammates.
we steal game 1. We somehow steal game 2.
What do you mean somehow?
Yeah.
We're gonna sweep that team.
And then Serge goes up to Giannis and says, hey, I've done this before. I've come back from 2-0 against you. We can do this. And it just creates further team dysfunction. And suddenly the Raptors are in the Eastern Conference Finals. You know, all jokes aside, depending on how the playoffs and the bracket like shakes out, I don't know, man. I'm starting to feel a little optimistic. I'm starting to feel a little delusional about the Raptors. One round, 2 rounds. 1 round, I think they can do.
A 7-game win streak does a lot for you.
It really does a
Yeah.
lot.
All my chips with the dip, so bring them dips.
Yeah, that's gonna be me. I can't, get deep into the playoffs. I will freestyle every day on this show.
I have no doubt.
I
Okay.
will battle Dame.
Another one.
You were talking with Savannah yesterday about All-Star
Oh
Weekend
my
ideas,
God.
rap battles. I will battle Dame.
Okay, we're gonna have to move on to Twitter. We're gonna have to move on to Twitter questions, man. Okay, because we got a lot of them. Thank you to people for sending them in. As always, you know, there's just not enough time to answer all of them. But hopefully, we'll get to the most pertinent ones. Number one here from Naish says, "Why can't we just get a center and a bench scorer? 3 question marks. We've been asking for so long." Alex,
We have many centers, just not a lot of them are that exciting to the fan base, apparently.
you're not excited about Drew Eubanks?
Who?
By the way, when you came into the office today,
You
I
gonna
was sitting on
expose
the
me?
computer, and I'm not gonna expose you. I'm
Okay.
exposing myself. I'm sitting on my desk at the office. You know, the 2 screens, and one screen had Drew Eubanks all possessions highlights, some random compilation of when he had 14 and 11 against, I think, OKC or something, and the other desktop page I had on the Google search, how large are Drew Eubanks' hands?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, apparently he's got big hands.
Yeah, all I did was look
He's
up.
a decent finisher, but I just don't think he can do much defensively for you. Nick hasn't really played this type of player, generally speaking. He's mostly a post-up guy, doesn't shoot. So, again, he's a third-string center. So, I guess the Raptors did get a center.
Yeah, they
And
love.
he can technically score. A
they
bench
love
scorer,
their-
Thad Young is a bench scorer.
All right, you're pushing it. Speaking of delusional, no, you were doing that research. I was just making sure Thad Young was on the 2012 Sixers, so I could refer to him as part of the Uncut Gems
Did you
cinematic universe.
did you watch back Uncut Gems through some of the footage and maybe pause on to see number 21?
No, I just pulled up 3 screenshots of the movie. But to that question, I do think there were a lot of people who wanted them to add some scoring. You talk about the spacing, you talked about all of that beyond the starting 5. I think Eric Gordon seemed like a pretty popular name that people were throwing out there. You didn't seem that
Yeah.
interested in it, in getting Eric Gordon.
I wasn't. I mean, you know, he does shoot the ball very effectively. He's got a, you know, he's made a comeback. He's played in the league a long time. He's been a very solid player for a long time. I don't know. There's just something about him that I just wasn't totally enthralled with. I think maybe if you look at just the fit, yeah, he can be your third guard. If you wanted to give him a first-round pick, I guess you could have gotten him, really. But it seemed like nobody in the league wanted to get him, right? Like, he just stayed with the Rockets. I think he's got another year on his deal, too. So I didn't have a specifically great reason not to want Eric Gordon. I was just like,
But you just never seemed so that excited whenever his name was brought up.
no. But then again, if you told me, hey, you know, the Raptors are going to trade for Thad Young, I don't know if I would have been like, hooray. You know,
I'm
So-
I'm happy about Thad
No,
Young.
I'm happy too. I'm just
I'm
being
really
like,
happy about
I'm
Thad
just
Young.
not like over the moon.
No, that's fair.
But I mean, also I think this is a point that you know, Jeff wanted to ask on the Twitter as well, is just why are so many people overreacting?
Overreacting to what though?
A lot of people on the timeline have been underwhelmed
Okay, but like
for the Raptors.
my question is like, what were your expectations coming into this trade deadline? My expectations was they were going to flip Goran Dragic with whatever draft capital for a rotation player, and that's exactly what they did.
Yeah.
I wasn't expecting anything more than that.
Yeah, fair enough.
So
You're telling people that their expectations are hurting their feelings, which is something I hear quite often.
Let's say that.
Okay, Vlad wants to ask, what is the ceiling for Drew Eubanks? I am excited from what I see from his YouTube highlights, but I would love to know others' opinions.
Wow, is Blake Murphy still on the line? Where is he? Get Blake Murphy back on. No, I don't know, man. I defer to you on this one.
I mean,
I don't think he's going to factor in terms of this season.
Okay, put it this way: if you put him up with Precious and make them both do the mic control, where you're just making layups over and over and over again, left hand, right hand, I think he'd beat Precious in the mic control.
Okay.
Other than that, I don't know. I don't know. This is not like a huge like addition, I think.
Yeah.
I think this is just like you make the money work, you balance out the roster.
Right.
Maybe you keep him as a third string center. Maybe you let him go and you just sign Champagny for the season. Any breaking trades? Well, every time you grab your phone, I'm nervous, man.
Oh, no. Raptors PR has just officially confirmed the Thaddeus Young trade.
Oh, wow.
So there we go.
Wow, okay.
Yeah, no more texting my friends around the league.
No, I thought your friends around the league was going to be like, hey, last second, the Raptors get a shooter.
Yeah, the Raptors have
magically.
acquired Bogdanovich.
Yeah, that wasn't happening apparently. It's
Man,
okay.
that would have been nice, but I think it would have been a very high price.
It would have been. Also, he has long-term contract.
I don't mind that. I really like him
Yeah, me
as
too.
a player. Like if you're thinking about a contending team for the next couple of years, him off the bench, man, that's a depth that they need.
Yeah. I still think that the Raptors should look for that in some way. Now they don't even have an open roster spot, although I don't think they're committed to Eubanks. They can just cut him. There's also other guys on the roster they can
Well,
realistically
okay,
cut. Let's be real.
let's put it this way then. So you were talking about the question about people being underwhelmed
Yeah.
at the trade deadline.
Yeah.
So let's assume no more moves are coming in, and let's assume they don't do anything in the buyout market. So this is the roster now that's going to go into the playoffs. I don't particularly feel underwhelmed about it because I think, again, it's the perspective of this is a development year. We can acknowledge, thanks to this win streak especially, that they're ahead of the curve now. There's a lot of excitement, and I was talking a couple weeks ago about the similarities to the 2013-14 season with this Raptors team. And if you check their strength of schedule, they've got one of the easiest schedules for the remaining 2 months of the season. There's a real chance that the Raptors end up at 45 to 48 wins.
Yeah.
And that's going to set them up really nice. If they get to 45 to 48 wins, I think they're going to be in range to potentially have a number 4, number 5 seed.
I mean, the team will have to stay very healthy. And that was another thing where people were looking at the trade deadline is how much depth can you add to the roster so that if anybody was able to go down for like 1 or 2 games, that you can still sort of stay afloat.
Yeah, but then the other thing I would push back is like, no one's pushing for a championship this season here.
Okay.
Right? So like the front office had to weigh at the trade deadline how much long-term flexibility, how much draft capital they were willing to give up, and they clearly drew a line, and this is the trade that they made. I don't know.
Yeah.
I guess I'm just as measured as the Raptors front office.
Damn, look at you.
Yeah, I'm just old.
Got Bobby Webster here.
No, I'm just old. I am worried about Fred's minutes though still.
All right. Well, maybe a question that is more near and dear to your heart in particular. Paul asks, would Alex trade his Jalen Harris Raptors jersey for a Goran Dragic Raptors jersey?
Yeah, so I don't think I need to make that trade. I think the Goran Raptors jersey is going to be on the buyout market at Real Sports in about 24 hours. So if anybody works at Real Sports...
How many of those do you think they printed, man? There can't be more than 5.
If anybody works at Real Sports, I'm feeling generous. I'm willing to donate $49.99 for a Goran Dragic jersey. I'll happily take that. Yeah,
really?
I got cap room.
Really?
I got cap room.
You're gonna wear a Goran Dragic jersey?
I will not wear it, but
around the city.
Have you seen all the dumb stuff that I've bought? But
yeah, fair enough.
I have cap room. I created a trade exception last year, so no, I'm not trading my Jalen Harris jersey. In fact, we're trying to get him on the show, so hopefully we can land that interview of the century as well.
That's right, actually.
Yeah. So the Jalen Harris jersey is off the market officially.
Okay,
no more questions.
Fair enough. This question from Shanda: where does the trade leave Kem in the new rotation. That seems like an upgraded version. So the Raptors now have no centers in the starting five and 4 centers coming off the
The
bench.
Raptors love imbalance.
Yeah. Nah, this is
Besides, like, nah, man. We're not balancing these scales.
so. Yeah.
If
what
the
does that
trade
leave
deadline
Kem?
was like on a dating app, like they legit are just like, yo, we're just looking for 6'7" to 6'9" guys.
Yeah,
And, Spurs sent over Thad Young and they're like, deal.
they literally swipe left on everything else. Anybody else? Do not mention. I mean, yeah. So
Kem's been slow coming back from his injury, and I think that's to be
Definitely.
expected.
yeah,
It's been a tough season for Kem when you think about it. Like
Very
lots
tough,
of stops and starts for Kem since the start of the season.
in training camp, he barely played
Yeah.
or wasn't really available, and then gets hurt a few times. And I mean, even just on a personal level, like it really sucked to have like nose surgery because you.
Yeah,
got
and he
elbowed and had
ditched
to
his
wear a mask.
mask, right? Which I'm worried about because that was a serious nose injury.
Yeah. So,
Again, I'm old. I'm just worried about people's health.
wow. Okay. I think it's gonna take him a little bit of time to get back in the rotation. I'm not gonna lie.
But we know he can be a rotation player. So I think,
Sure, but again, this speaks to the imbalance portion.
I know.
They don't want to play a center, and they have 4 centers coming off the bench.
I will acknowledge this, even though, I've been a beacon of optimism
Yep.
today, is that when you look at it, like you mentioned, the Raptors upgraded their rotation from 7 to 8. Like it's still
Yeah.
not a particularly deep team. And I think Blake Murphy actually made a really good point is that at some point you're going to have to reintroduce a Yuta Watanabe or a Justin Champagnie back in the rotation. You just have to.
Sure.
Although I've said this, you have to, and then Nick just goes ahead and plays them 40 minutes. So I could see Nick just going that route as well. Nick just needs to manage the next 2 months, get the Raptors into the playoffs, and then no one's going to have a problem with him playing the starters 45 minutes a game in the playoffs.
Yeah. That's it.
You just got to manage the next 2 months while still winning games. I think they can. The schedule is not that hard.
I think they can as well.
They haven't lost since that triple overtime war against Miami. Can you believe that? That started
yeah.
their win streak.
That should count for 1.5 wins.
Yeah, it should count as 3.
Okay. Sure. Yeah. Let's just,
And every time
let's
Pascal
do
does a spin
artificial
move,
leads.
it should count as 5 because it's so beautiful.
Okay. All right. Another question here. Scotty B. I don't know. Someone just named Scotty B, I guess. Scotty B account. Is Masai washed? A lot of people are asking this question. What does this even mean?
What is the context? Can we get some context
the
to these
context?
questions?
Is there's a lot of new fans who are essentially children, who might literally be children, and they take a very childish approach to this. I'm not saying that Masai is above criticism. I'm not even saying you have to love this Thad Young trade. I'm trying to say that like
Were people
what are
expecting
you doing,
a
man?
franchise-altering trade today? Because that was not going to happen.
I think people always expect. I think the NBA trade deadline is like Christmas.
Yeah.
And the Raptors were like, we don't celebrate that.
Yeah, that analogy went off the rail. The trade deadline is like Lunar New Year, and these young fans expect like $500 in that red pocket. All you're getting is a candy. By the way, a couple of weeks ago when Will gave me a red pocket on air, some longtime listeners might remember that episode. By the way, the minute the show was over, he's like, I'm going to need that back. That
Yeah.
actually wasn't for you.
Yeah, it wasn't. That was just
So,
just for a period.
Wishing you an entire year of bad luck, man. Damn. That was bad.
Yeah, that was.
All right,
was-
Masai's not
that was
washed.
rude.
Also, do you think from now on, because I think we always still use Masai's name when we talk about the front office.
Yeah.
I think we should be using Bobby's name because Bobby's doing all the heavy lifting now.
What do you mean now? It's a team. It's a team. You know, like you and I are a team. Okay.
No. This is the Raptor Show with Will Lou.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
Will Lou deserves all the credit. I'm just here, man.
Yeah. So
I'm
who-
your
who
Jeremy
Makes,
Castleberry.
who makes all the rundowns? Who
No,
calls
stop,
everybody?
stop letting people know that I
Who
work
comes
hard.
with the
No, I
ideas?
want the
You know,
reputation
who's
of
in
a
the
slacker.
chat in the
No, I
off
want the
days, man?
reputation of a slacker. But
Okay.
like, I think we should start just only naming Bobby. That is Asian representation.
I mean, we're gonna hear from Bobby.
Oh, I
at
can't
4
wait.
4 p.m.
I cannot wait, yeah.
I'm dying to when the show's done. I'm
What
gonna
is Bobby-
run up to a meeting room here.
What is Bobby going to say? This is the one criticism I will have of Bobby is that every time Masai has a presser,
Yeah.
he inspires the whole
Bars
city.
every single
He
time.
tells the city, like, stop being so insecure. Look yourself in the mirror. We're the best city in the world. Like, what's wrong with you? F Brooklyn,
Brush
all of
your
this
teeth.
stuff. Yeah, he's like, Masai. Masai is gonna dap you next time he sees you at the arena for your 5-minute rant about Goran Dragic.
Oh, I can't even
You're
say
gonna
on
get
air
the
what
dap.
Masai said about Goran the day after he got announced that he was returning to Toronto. Masai's contract.
Let's agree to
he
never.
had a sidebar and definitely
Yeah.
did not care for Goran.
Let's agree to never speak Goran's name again.
Yeah,
I'm
with
actually not that
actually.
mad at him. He just never created too much content. He just went to Miami.
No, I'm mad at him.
Hey, do you want to do something here? Goran Dragic trivia. Do you remember his last game with the Raptors?
Yeah, he
that he
started
played?
against the Pistons. He had
He
14
did.
points, I think.
Yeah, and the Pistons had 127.
Oh man, yeah, that was rough. By the way, why did he start the
Fred
first
was
game of the
out.
season?
Oh,
No,
the first.
home
Okay,
opener.
yeah, that's
Why
right.
did Goran Dragic start and Gary Trent Jr. came off the bench? That made no sense to me.
No, I think
He
they were.
also started all of preseason too. Like, was that a showcase or something? Was
I
that
think
the
they were.
G League
I think they
showcase?
were trying to make
The
it work.
Goran League showcase.
No, I think they were trying to make it work.
Make what work?
Have Goran here. If he played, probably raise his trade value, and then you would have ended up with Derek White like you wanted instead of Thad
He
Young.
clearly did not want to work.
Okay, but to give the Raptors credit, Nick bailed on that pretty quick.
Yeah, because he was not good.
Yeah, but you have to give it a shot first, though. You got to give it a
Why
look.
do you start him though? Put him off the bench. You just re-signed Gary for $50 million.
He really didn't look good, though. I really wonder when he gets bought out and goes to, say, Dallas. Like, you think he's actually going to be a good bench contributor?
Well, Dallas also just acquired Spencer Dinwiddie,
Right.
and they have Jalen Brunson. So why would they need to even play Goran that many minutes? So
No, it's a good point.
Yeah.
Any more questions?
yeah. Last one here. This is not related to the trade deadline, thank goodness. Hey guys, this is from James. Hey guys, I've asked this before, but what is the new get Nick to call a coach's challenge hierarchy? I think Fred and OG top this list as they don't over ask. Now that Serge is gone, does Boucher take his place in over asking? So the question is, who does Nick save his
Yes.
challenge for?
This is the teacher's pet theory.
Yes.
In terms of when there's a play that happens in a Raptors game and a player looks at the bench and says, hey, he waves his hand in the air, twirls it and say, hey, let's do a review. Nick will often not acknowledge that player, right?
He'll just look away.
Yeah,
he's like, oh, wow.
Yeah. He'll be like, yo, catch me on Murdoch Mysteries. They haven't lost since he went on Murdoch Mysteries, by the way.
Facts. Yep.
So since I spent an hour watching Murdoch Mysteries, I still want that time back. But I think it's Fred. Pascal's got to be up there, too.
Pascal's up there. He also asks a lot, though.
You know who was sneakily a teacher's pet for a week?
Utah?
Utah
He kept
Watanabe.
using his challenge for Utah.
The first game Utah came back,
Yeah.
he used the challenge.
Yeah.
I believe was that the Dylan Brooks play?
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that was a good call.
No,
That
because
was great
Nick
use.
knows that Utah is positionally sound.
Sure, yeah.
By the way, I believe you got some criticism during the Chris Boucher saga about how we don't criticize Utah ever. So let's criticize Utah for 1 minute here. He can't shoot. He still
hasn't made
can't
a
shoot.
single shot
He
in
still can't shoot.
in months.
Yeah, he's the new Svi.
And
He's not the new
He,
Svi. but-
he even started fouling people on closeouts, which was like the one thing that you could
Yeah.
always guarantee him for. There you go. Yeah.
There we go. We've
Yeah.
criticized Utah Watanabe.
Hey, we got a last second fan question here from Faisal, I think. I think that's how you say him. I'm
Is it
not
our
sure.
Faisal?
What do you mean Goran provided no content? I've got a hard drive full of his best moments. Yeah, this is our Faisal.
Oh, okay. Faisal,
Why are you hyping up this Goran content, man? What did you do with
you
Goran?
posted a whole recipe on how to make wings at home yesterday, and I text you.
Oh, that's what he was busy for? Yo.
And I text you to
man.
ask you if I could come pick up some
Oh,
wings because
man.
you live close to the studio. I'm still free to come pick up at 4:15 p.m. So please text me.
Well, you're not gonna be around for that Bobby press conference?
Yeah, I'll be there.
Yeah.
I'll grab some clips for you tomorrow to talk about on the show.
All right. That's enough Twitter questions.
That's
Thanks everyone
enough.
for asking.
So-
So a lot of people ask about the buyout market. Let's see who's actually bought out first.
Yeah, we can't.
And then we'll address them individually.
Let's not
Again, the
waste.
show runs daily.
Yeah,
so
yeah,
we
the
need
show
to, we
runs
need to,
daily.
We need to ration our
The show
content.
runs daily. You know, I'm starting to realize that 2 hours is the max for me. Actually, no, I do 3 hours with Show Ali.
I was gonna
Shouts
say.
to Show Ali.
Yep.
But we'll have Michael
Showtime.
Grange. We'll have Michael Grange on the other side of the break to give us some Raptors insight.
Yes.
And I appreciate everybody listening and watching so far to this trade deadline special. I've been having fun. How would you grade this trade deadline special?
A+.
Wow.
Every show is A+. So I've been your host, Willu. You've been listening to The Raptors Show, powered by DoorDash on Sportsnet 590, The Fan. Welcome back to the Raptors Show on Sportsnet 590 The Fan, powered by DoorDash. I'm your host, Will Lou. I continue to be joined by producer and co-host Alex Wong, and we are joined on the line by Sportsnet's Michael Grange. Grange, appreciate you taking time. Obviously, it's always a busy time around trade deadline. So, are you excited? Are you excited? Is the Thaddeus Young move moving you one way or the other?
I'm vibrating. I think this could be the difference. But I'm actually, if it was going to be for Thad Young, I'm quite happy that this has all been made official and will be put to bed by about 4 o'clock when Bobby Webster speaks. So it would be a little disappointing if this was, I think it was 2019, they didn't get the trade call done until about 11 o'clock at night. So this is an improvement on that.
That is correct. Yeah. We actually get to have a pretty tidy day and then just move on to covering this riveting Raptors Rockets matchup where the Raptors look to extend their win streak to 8 games against another subpar opponent. Hopefully they're going to be okay. Fred's going to be out for that game. So, okay, Grange, take us behind the scenes a little bit with this trade. I mean, there were discussions with the Raptors and San Antonio, but they were largely centered around Jakob Poeltl. And you reported, I believe, yesterday that sort of those talks have kind of moved on, and the Spurs ultimately held on to Poeltl past the trade deadline. I assume over the course of some of those conversations, they're like, hey, by the way, if you don't want Jakob, maybe can we interest you in Thaddeus and some financial savings and other minor moves?
Yeah, well, I did hear Thad Young's name last week, but it was more in the context of a buyout. And so a little surprising maybe that that it ended up being, I'm sorry, I should say not necessarily a buyout specific to the Raptors. It was just he was a guy that a team like the Raptors should look at. And, for good reason, right, as you guys have detailed, like he's a really quality player. He's kind of in sort of a bit of a no man's land there with the Spurs. And, he's the kind of player that would, I think, be advantageous, and I think a lot of teams might be interested in him in a buyout. So for the price of, a few spots in the draft and a couple other nuances that I think the Raptors could look at themselves and go, yeah, this is probably worth it. They end up getting a player they probably otherwise wouldn't have had a shot at. The Raptors haven't had a ton of success in the buyout market in the past. So,
come on, Jody Meeks and Jeremy Lin.
Exactly. So yeah, I mean, I think it's I guess what I'm a little surprised about is, I think there was legitimate optimism that, as at the beginning of the week or late last week or whatever it might have been, that a first round pick and the contract that was Goran Dragic could yield, a player that would be a little bit more exciting. And I think in the end, if the way it was laid out for me, if you just went first round pick, if you just went the contract, you're going to get a player, but probably not somebody who's likely to be in your rotation. And so they kind of split the difference here, right? They didn't really give up a complete first round pick. I guess it's like a first and a half or whatever, depending on how you value that second round pick they get from Detroit. And they get a guy who should be in your rotation, or at least gives you a lot of insurance if, Ken Birch's knee ends up being a bit wonky, or, if you're not completely trusting Chris Boucher and Precious Achua in a playoff situation when things get a little more complex and some of the nuances got to be, there's a little less room for error. So I think if you look at it that way, it's kind of an interesting move.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, look, I think the bottom line is the Raptors' rotation expanded from 7 to 8 players, maybe even 8 to 9, depending on sort of how Nick wants to operate it. Like that's not bad because obviously the minutes restriction, everything like that is just there was a big strain on the team. I think with the centers though, were there any discussions? I mean, I imagine there were obviously discussions for everybody essentially, right? This is a trade deadline. This is the NBA. Everyone gets discussed, but like, with the fact that the Raptors have so many front court players. Obviously, this is something that they don't mind because they really just truly want to put out a team that is just all 6'8" guys with 7-foot wingspans. And Thad Young, by the way, is 6'8" and 7-foot wingspan. But yeah, well, what about talks about Chris Boucher? Obviously, he's a impending unrestricted free agent. Could this affect his status moving forward with the team? Based on sort of what happens to him in offseason. What about a guy like Ken Birch, who has signed for 3 years last offseason, but so far has sort of been really up and down just based on the fact that he hasn't been available. And now when you look at it, he might be the third string center, just talking about coming off the bench even.
Sorry. Yeah. I mean, sorry, I just got a text. Can you just repeat that? Who are you asking about?
Yeah, just like any conversations around the Raptors bigs. Do they explore any opportunities to maybe move like Kem for, not because he needs to be moved or even Chris needs to be moved, just like to balance out the roster a little bit so that, they have, let's say, not 4 centers coming off the bench at once.
Yeah, I think as it relates to Boucher, they're really excited about him. I
Okay.
mean, I think that they, it wasn't like they wouldn't have moved on, but as everyone who's been watching knows, the way he's played since, for example, that the Boxing Day disaster, and his own insights into that, the way he's delivered on those insights, the consistency with which he's done it. The role that Chris Boucher is playing is really valuable, and the Raptors are very excited about it. I think they still see some upside there. He's such a late bloomer.
Mm-hmm.
So, I think the Raptors are happy to be in a situation they still have him and still have his bird rights. Doesn't mean they're going to sign him. It, depends on the market, but I think they would want to.
Right.
And then with Kem, there couldn't possibly be much of a market for him. He's got 2 years left on his deal. He's got a knee that is now a little bit concerning. He's a good player, not a great player. So I think, if anything, what Thad Young does is it's a little bit of insurance if Kem's knee does end up being more troublesome as this season goes along, or if you end up in a postseason and he can't go because of his knee. So I don't think that there's much of an option there. And Precious Achiuwa probably of that group would probably be the most interesting if you're going to include him in a trade. Not that people would be knocking your doors down, but I think he would be, if you look at the Raptors young players, he'd be the guy that people might still be willing to take a flyer on.
Mm-hmm.
But by the same token, he's really, I think, shown in the last month, he is, as much as we all see the struggles, you project 3-4 years from now, and presuming he has, the wild card that we're not really clear on is how committed he is to the process of getting better. But presuming he is, he's got every tool in the world to do so, and he's shown a few flashes. So I just think that this is, with Thad Young, like I say, it's insurance. I think makes your team a little smarter. I think he can help. He doesn't cloud up your books going forward, and you really got him for nothing if you count. If you look at it from the perspective of what you got from Goran, which was nothing, and you can even make an argument that picking 32nd or 33rd in the draft is preferable to picking 22nd or 23rd because you don't pick up a guaranteed contract, and you can kind of pick and choose a little bit better in terms of how you want to structure your contract with whoever you do pick there. So I think I think that would be the thinking on it from my point of view.
Yeah. No, I think the trade in itself makes sense. I think really a lot of the expectations, and Grange, you've been very generous with your time and coming on the program, and basically every time I always ask you about trades and things like this, and we even did the whole exercise with Blake of just like all the potential things Goran and a first could become. We really went through every single NBA roster. So I think maybe there was like more expectations was drummed up on that front. But I think the trade makes sense for the team on multiple fronts. They also have some more financial flexibility. They create this traded player exception, which I would say like 80% of traded player exceptions don't get used generally. But that is still another piece that they keep in the that they keep as a path to make moves in the future. And I think the Raptors are better today, after the trade deadline than before they started it. So I don't know why there would be as much disappointment, but then again, I don't know. People are also generally like fairly pretty spoiled when it comes to the Raptors these days. I think when you have good management for this long, you just expect like Andre Bargnani for unprotected first all the time,
Yeah, I mean, I think there is some of that, but it is fair. Like, I mean, I would say this, like compared to what I thought they would be able to do and what they thought they might be able to do, I would have, if you had asked me 2 weeks ago that I thought they could have got a player who would both plug into the rotation and fill a need, right? Or a more obvious need. And so, had you told me 2 weeks ago they might have been able to get Eric Gordon, I would have said, well, you get him for just a first. It's interesting how Eric Gordon doesn't go. I know he's not everybody's perfect player. He's got, as many highs as lows on his resume. But, if you kind of take the name out, if you just say, well, listen, we got a veteran guy who's been in the playoffs, has a little bit of playmaking chops, is a fairly switchable defender, shoots 46% from three, which is, I think, what he's shooting, or he was shooting it, though, very recently. That's a little easier to understand than, how Thad Young and a second-round pick works, right? That's I think, where there's a little bit of confusion here. And, I like you. I think it's fair to kind of look at the Raptors front office and examine a track record and say, no, they probably did what they feel is the best trade, but it's not so no-brainer where you're looking here and going, yeah, absolutely, this was the right thing to do. And just at some of the players that didn't get traded, we'll see, right? I know Evan Fournier was a name they thought about, but in the end, they were kind of discouraged by the fact he had 2 years left on his deal. It wasn't the money, the fact I think he's $19 million or something, but they're like, it's not so much paying him next year; it was paying him a year after they were worried about. But again, flip side is there's a guy who shoots 38% from three for his career, shooting over 40% in the last 20 odd games. There is a positional fit there, pretty obvious. So, again, I think if that had been the outcome, and maybe you only had to give up a second round pick or something, again, it would make a certain amount of sense, or it'd be easier to explain them than what we've had to do with Thad Young here.
Right. One question we had also just last before we jet off to this exciting Bobby Webster press conference, which I'm sure he'll give very riveting answers as always. Anybody on the buyout market that, look, the Raptors now have all 15 roster spots accounted for. They were playing with 14 for most of the season. I don't think they have as much reason to do so now. I think they can carry the full roster considering the fact that they saved some money in this deal, so they're not going to be in any risk of going above the luxury tax. And who knows how much they're firmly committed to a guy like Drew Eubanks. I don't know. That's another center, by the way, that the Raptors just got. So just the bench is literally all centers and maybe some power forwards. And also Malik and Svi, who just don't play.
All small centers, though. Can't have a big center.
No big centers. No, this is. I mean, it was a meme, I think, maybe entering into the season, but really they have only made moves in this direction. So it's no longer really a joke. It's really just their strategy. But yeah, if the Raptors do get involved in the buyout market, is any names that you maybe look out for, anything that specifically jumps out at you? Are the Raptors even in a position to get a guy on the buyout market? Because, generally speaking, we know how some of that stuff works, right? A lot of these guys end up going to LA or Brooklyn or Miami, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I'd be pretty surprised. I think the one advantage they might have is, I think if they are going, there are, I would argue, probably some people who come here or come anywhere on a buyout, they're generally looking for opportunities, right? I think they're generally looking for a chance to prove their value to the market as they go back into the market. So if you're a veteran point guard and you're somehow in the buyout market, I don't know, there's no names off the top of my head, but could Toronto be an interesting opportunity? Yeah, maybe. But the flip side of that is, I think between, there just doesn't seem to, probably the best veteran point guard who's going to get bought out is Goran Dragic. I don't think
he'd be interested. Come on.
I don't think there's a fit. There doesn't seem to be a fit. So yeah, I wouldn't cross my fingers and hold my breath too hard on that one.
All right, Michael. Appreciate your time as always.
Okay.
And we'll look forward to having you on the show again very soon. Thanks, guys.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Take care. Enjoy your evening. Bye.
It'd be hilarious if Groin Soreness. No, that's not even possible.
We don't.
To be clear, that's not even possible.
We already got a rant from you.
Yeah.
We don't need a Goran returns to Toronto rant.
Oh my god.
Like that's enough.
Yeah.
They gotta play. That's the tribute video they should play the next time Goran Dragic comes back to Toronto.
Ooh, yes.
The 5 minutes of you on the YouTube stream.
Just snitching on him?
With the headphones in front of your head. You're looking like Naruto.
The Raptors already waived Drew Eubanks.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
That was quick.
Let's edit out the 17 minutes that we talked about him.
Turns out a 2-hour show is a lot. Okay, it's a lot more than just 1 hour.
Man,
it's not just that's not double the work. It's like 4 times the work.
Lots of things are happening in real time. No, I'm already shifted focus. I am focused on the Raptors continuing this win streak tonight in Houston. So as mentioned earlier, Fred VanVleet is out with groin soreness. Just looking at the schedule, because All-Star Weekend is next weekend.
Oh, we looking at the schedule? Damn.
So
this is how
Houston,
I know you need to fill 5 minutes when we look at the schedule. All right,
no,
go
let
ahead.
me tell you about the time I went for deep dish pizza.
Okay.
So at Houston tonight,
Yep.
on Saturday, they're back home against the Denver Nuggets. Is that a Sportsnet game? Am I going to see you at the arena?
You know what? They're not going to play at home for quite a while. Like literally, that's the last time in February. They're
not going to be back home
so
until March 1st.
I will be there one way or another. for
Okay,
sure.
I'm excited to see you there. Next Monday, they're at New Orleans.
Mm-hmm.
Wednesday at Minnesota, and that will take them into All-Star Weekend. We always do this now. We look at the schedule in like 4-game chunks. 3-1.
Yeah, I mean, New Orleans is very good
Those are
these days.
not easy games next week, I think, at New Orleans, at Minnesota. Certainly not as easy as OKC last night.
Well, you got to figure Chris Finch knows all the details.
Yeah,
to the
what did you
Knicks.
know, Chris Finch? You left right before the pandemic ravaged the team.
He knew that the GM wanted to hire him for head coach, and he said
okay.
nothing
okay,
more
okay,
important.
Okay, I love when you give me a real answer.
Yeah. No, that's good for him.
3-1, 3-1. Let's push for 3-1.
Yeah, look, listen. With the way the Raptors are playing right now, with the fact that they're healthy, and of course, obviously, Fred's resting in this game. Hopefully, that's nothing long term. I don't think it will be. He looked great, by the way, in the game against OKC. With them playing the way they are right now, I'm probably gonna pick them almost against any team. Like, yeah, the Nuggets will be tough. Like, Jokic will be tough, right? Like, they're gonna have to throw one of their 15 centers at Nikola Jokic. Maybe all 15 at once. I don't know. But yeah, like it's not like the Raptors can't beat them. It's not like the Raptors can't win all these games right now because they've been that good.
The vibes are great. Like, not to steal a line from Bobby Webster, but like,
I couldn't believe Bobby said that, man.
No,
we're gonna get another great soundbite like that after the 4 p.m. here.
No, the vibes are great.
Yeah.
I'm honestly, I know I asked you this last week, but this is really the most excited I've been about the Raptors since they disappeared from Toronto.
Yeah. Well, that's the other part for me is like, yes, I understand the trade deadline is very exciting. People want to talk about it. It's always like a big thing, right? To me, the most exciting part is just how well the Raptors are playing, period. I mean, they could have done nothing. I mean, I would have been a little upset if they just
I would have been
Goran
upset if they didn't use the Goran Dragic chip.
But like, I just want to get back to watching this team. Like, I'm genuinely excited to watch them play again tonight. Like, they've been really fun to watch. They've been playing really hard. They're in a great rhythm. Everyone knows their role. And yeah, I mean, they've also slightly upgraded the team. So I think all of that, I genuinely feel pretty good about, right? So
yeah. So should we, since we do have a couple minutes?
Yeah. What's up?
Should we tell the story of where you were when the Kawhi Leonard trade happened? Since it's a trade deadline show, it's a trade show.
I've already told this.
Have you told this story
publicly? Yeah, I've told the story publicly
on different platforms, or this one. Do you want to talk?
Different platforms.
Do you want to address more allegations from Chris Boucher? Then those are your two doors that you can choose.
No. What more allegations? No, there are no more allegations. We're gonna hammer this out. We're gonna sit down. Hopefully this weekend. If not this weekend, then later down the line. Obviously, the Raptors don't play at home for a while. But Zoom does exist. Although I would much prefer to have this happen in person.
Me too. So we can take a photo.
This photo, honestly, when you take it's gonna be like 2,000 likes at least.
Chris is gonna. Oh yeah, I can't wait, man. I'm looking for 5K on that one. I'm gonna tag the cover for the first time ever. You know when tweets blow up and people promote like their TikTok or like their Etsy? See, I don't try to do that because it's like, I mean, I'm a pretty corny person, but I find that to be a little bit too much. Like, tagging something to a viral tweet. But when that one hits 5K, I'm definitely putting in all the cover story links.
Oh yeah, no, go ahead, man. Go ahead.
Chris is gonna come after me for the royalty.
No. Bring a cover story. Bring the book.
Make a post
and get Chris to hold it, man. Get him to sign it too. Honestly,
I am really excited for the two of you to chat. It's gonna be fun.
Yeah, no, it's
what's gonna be your opening question? Opening statement.
I'm sorry.
All right.
No,
this guy's
I will
Ruben
apologize.
stuttered.
We'll talk about it. And then honestly, I just want to get through a season because his turnaround has been really fun to cover. And I'm happy he's not moved, honestly. Like, he's been like their best bench player by far.
No, for sure. But we
Yeah.
got to get out of here. But I just want to say thanks again to everybody watching on the YouTube stream, listening,
2 hours.
and all of that stuff. Subscribe to the podcast. Give us, rate us 5 stars, all of that stuff. We really do appreciate it. It's been really fun so far, and I'm really excited about the remainder of the season.
Yeah. So excited that, you can watch us on TV soon as well. That's right. So we'll have more details on that coming up. But for now, thanks to everyone for listening. I've been your host, Will Liu. This was the Raptors Show, powered by DoorDash on Sportsnet 590 The Fan. Make sure you find the Raptors Show wherever you listen to podcasts and subscribe, and please rate and review our show. A reminder, we're back in the studio streaming live once again on Sportsnet's YouTube channel, Monday to Friday between 2 and 3 p.m. Thanks again to my producer and co-host, Alex Wong, to our guest, Blake Vivek. Do we have Vivek on here? Why is Vivek on here? Grange, our producer, Derek Vandell, Jennifer Rolnick for helping us behind the scenes with the YouTube stream, and I will talk to you tomorrow.